Today, I want to talk about a story that is, get this, over 115 years old, but honestly, it feels like it could have been written this morning over a cup of coffee. We're digging into a 1906 German novel by the brilliant Hermann Hesse. Now, this book is so shockingly on point about our modern anxieties, our hustle culture, our constant struggle with burnout, that it reads less like a piece of history and more like some kind of prophecy. It's called Beneath the Wheel. And it's this incredibly profound and, yeah, tragic look at what happens when a sensitive, talented person gets completely crushed by the relentless machine of what society expects of them. And what's really fascinating is that this whole story is based on Hesse's own incredibly painful experiences as a young man. It gives us this unnervingly perfect lens to look at our own lives, our schools, and even our future with AI.
Okay, so let's just dive right into the deep end. This quote, this is the question that beats at the very heart of the entire novel. It's a question that clearly haunted Hesse his whole life. And it's so powerful because it forces us to stop pointing fingers at individuals and start looking at the entire system. How on earth does something that's supposed to be about nurturing and growth, education, somehow turn into the very thing that destroys you? How does it twist and morph into this merciless, gigantic, unstoppable wheel? This one question is really the engine for everything we're going to talk about today.
So here's our roadmap. First, we're going to really dissect that original tragedy from 1906. Then we'll look at the two very different paths the novel shows us. Do you submit to the system, or do you rebel against it? After that, we're going to jump forward in time and see how this 100-year-old metaphor has made a terrifying comeback in our own world. And finally, we're going to face what might be the most urgent question of all. How is artificial intelligence going to shape the future of this very wheel? Let's get into it. All right, so I want you to picture this. The year is 1906. We're in a small, kind of sleepy town in Germany's Black Forest. And at the absolute center of our story is a boy named Hans Giebenrath. Now, Hans isn't just a smart kid. He's a true prodigy. He's described as brilliant, incredibly sensitive, a kid who feels things really deeply and has this amazing connection to the natural world around him. But in his world, for a gifted boy from a regular family, there is only one acceptable path forward, just one: academic glory. He has to pass this grueling state exam to get into a super prestigious seminary. That's it. That's the only ticket to a future as a respected pastor or scholar. And this isn't just a suggestion. It is a destiny that has been forced on him by literally everyone he knows. The language the book uses to describe Hans is, well, it's chilling. The system, it doesn't see a child, it sees a talent mine. His mind isn't his own, it's a natural resource, something valuable to be extracted, polished, and then used for the benefit and the glory of his town and the state. This whole perspective completely changes the entire purpose of his childhood. Every single waking moment is optimized for this one single goal. His days become this relentless, brutal cycle of school, followed by extra tutoring, followed by more lessons in the evening. And all those simple, joyful, and, let's be honest, totally useless things that actually build a person's soul, like going fishing or tinkering with things or just wandering around with your friends, all of that is systematically cut out of his life. They're not just seen as fun, they're seen as wasteful distractions from the real serious business of becoming useful. Okay, so I'm just going to give you the spoiler right now. Hans's story does not have a happy ending. Not even close. After he actually succeeds and gets into the seminary, the immense, unending pressure just causes a complete mental and physical breakdown. He's sent back home, basically a defective product returned to sender. And when he gets back, he can't fit in anywhere. He's an outcast in the fancy academic world he fought so hard to get into, and he's now a total stranger in the simple normal world he left behind. His story ends with his tragic death by drowning, and the book leaves it kind of ambiguous. Was it an accident or was it a suicide? And this brings us right to the core question of the whole book, the question of who's to blame. Was this just a terrible accident? A personal failing on his part? Or was it something else entirely? Who or what is really responsible for destroying this boy? The easy answer would be to find one bad guy. But the book is so much smarter than that. There is no single villain here. The novel shows us that Hans' death was a systemic failure, a tragedy that was created by a conspiracy of, believe it or not, good intentions. First, you have his father, He's a man who's really driven by his own unfulfilled dreams, and he sees his son less as a child and more as an investment in his own social status. Then you've got his teachers, the enforcers, who see genius only as the ability to follow the rules and get the highest score. Then you zoom out, and you have the whole town, the society of dull and respectable people, whose local pride adds this whole other layer of crushing pressure. And finally, and this is the most heartbreaking part, you have Hans himself. He isn't just a passive victim here. He completely internalizes the system's values. He develops his own personal ambition to win their game. So it's not a conflict, but what one source calls an intention alliance. Everybody, including Hans, genuinely believed they were doing the right thing. And in doing so, they created this perfectly sealed system with no way out.
And right here, we get to the core paradox of the whole system. Its definition of success was the direct cause of Hans's failure as a complete human being. The book exposes this absolutely devastating psychological trap, which we can call the curse of prematurity. Think about it. This relentless, obsessive focus on speeding up his intellectual growth came at the direct expense of his emotional and spiritual development. All those so-called useless things, friendship, nature, daydreaming, the very things that build a resilient, sturdy sense of self, were just eliminated. This created a fatal imbalance. It's like his entire identity was a skyscraper built on a single fragile pillar, academic success. So when that one pillar finally cracked under all that pressure, there was nothing else left. The whole structure just collapsed. This idea is stunningly ahead of its time. It perfectly predicts modern psychological concepts about high achievers who are brilliant on paper but feel hollowed out inside.
But Hans wasn't completely alone in this pressure cooker. At the seminary, he meets another boy who represents a totally different way of dealing with the pressures of the wheel. This kid's name is Hermann, and his arrival really introduces this powerful central conflict into the story. So you've got Hans and Heilner, and they're really just two sides of the same coin, each one representing an incomplete way to deal with the system. Hans is the conformist. He's the sensitive wonder boy who buys into the rules and tries to win the game, but he just gets eaten alive by it. Heilner, on the other hand, is the total romantic rebel. He's a young poet, he reads forbidden books, he openly mocks the teachers. Their short, intense friendship awakens something sleeping in Hans's soul, but that only makes his inner conflict worse. The really bleak conclusion the novel offers is that both of these paths are dead ends. Hans' submission leads to his death. Heilner's rebellion gets him expelled and thrown out into a totally uncertain future. So he escapes being crushed by the wheel, but he gets completely cast outside of it. Neither one truly finds a way to live. The novel basically leaves us in this impossible position: get crushed or get exiled. And it forces us, the readers, to ask, well, is there another option? Is a third path even possible? Now, the book itself doesn't hand us a neat little answer, but the question itself points toward ideas that Hesse would explore later in his life: a path of integration. It's not about compromising, and it's not about simple rebellion. It's about building a self that is strong enough and whole enough to exist in the system without being consumed by it. It would demand the intellectual discipline of Hans, but combined with the free, poetic spirit of Heilner, a combination that, tragically, neither of the boys could ever achieve on their own. Okay, so at this point, you might be sitting there thinking, this is a really fascinating, sad story, but it's a literary tragedy from Wilhelmine Germany, a different world. Surely we've moved on from these kinds of rigid, oppressive systems. I mean, come on, surely in our modern, supposedly enlightened age, we've taken that soul-crushing machine apart, right? We talk all the time about student-centered learning, about work-life balance, about mental health. That old wheel has to be a relic, something you'd see in a museum. Well, here's the terrifying truth. The wheel was never dismantled. Not at all. It was just modernized. It was upgraded. It got a new coat of paint, some alloy tires, and a digital engine. That core logic, the idea that our value as human beings is directly tied to our measurable output and our usefulness to a system, that didn't vanish. It has simply evolved into a new and in many ways much more sneaky form that we all know very well: hustle culture. When you put them side by side, the parallels are just chillingly precise. Look at the core ideology. It shifted from creating useful members for the state to glorifying productivity as your entire personal identity.
The value metric changed from exam scores to KPIs, the number of hours you work, your side hustles. And the view of uselessness? It's identical. Back then, poetry and nature walks were seen as distractions. Today, rest is framed as laziness, and if you have a hobby, you better be thinking about how to monetize it. And the psychological results? Tragically, exactly the same. But here's the biggest, scariest upgrade: internalization. For Hans, the pressure was mostly external, from his dad, his teachers, his town. Today, that wheel has been installed inside our own heads. We've become our own relentless, unforgiving taskmasters.
So if the industrial age wheel got an upgrade for the 20th century knowledge economy, what does its next evolution look like? Where are we headed in the 21st century and beyond? The answer, without a single doubt, is artificial intelligence. AI puts us at a massive crossroads, and it presents us with the most definitive choice yet in this 115-year-old story.
AI has this incredible, profound duality. On one hand, it has the potential to become wings. It could be a truly liberating force that could finally smash the one-size-fits-all factory model of education that crushed Hans. It could give every single student a personalized, adaptive, and even empathetic learning experience. Or it could become the ultimate wheel, a hyper-efficient optimization engine that takes Hans's tragedy and accelerates it on a massive scale, running with cold, algorithmic precision and a terrifying, faceless efficiency. This is the choice, right here, laid out for us, because the exact same technology can be used for liberation or for oppression. Let's just take adaptive learning. As wings, it's amazing. It could customize lessons to a sensitive kid like Hans, letting him learn at his own pace. But as a wheel, it becomes a data-driven treadmill that just relentlessly optimizes him towards standardized test scores. An AI tutor could be a safe, non-judgmental space to ask questions, or it could destroy critical thinking by training students that there's only one right answer. The ultimate danger here is a wheel that runs itself, an oppressive, algorithmic system where there's no human you can appeal to. The oppression becomes faceless, absolute, and totally inescapable. So after more than a century, after all our progress, here we are, right back where Hermann has us started. The technology is different, the words we use have changed, but the fundamental choice is exactly the same. Do we build systems, whether we're talking about schools or companies or new technology, that are designed from the ground up to serve the complexity, the dignity, and the flourishing of the individual human soul? Or do we keep building systems that demand that the soul twist itself, contort itself, and ultimately sacrifice itself just to meet the needs of the machine? Hesse's novel isn't some dusty old relic. It is an urgent, essential operating manual for the 21st century. The wheel that crushed Hans Giebenrath was made of social norms, tradition, and human ambition. The new wheel, our wheel, is being built from data and code, and it is moving faster than anything we have ever seen before. And that leaves us with the most critical question of our time. As we design these incredibly powerful new AI systems, who is setting their goals? What values are we embedding deep inside their algorithms? Are we programming them for maximum efficiency and a very narrow, cold definition of success? Or are we programming them for human flourishing, for creativity, for nuance, and for compassion? The tragedy of Hans Giebenrath is a timeless, vital warning. The choice now is ours to make.